Welcome to Beacon Northern's online talks.
Lost Ways. This one looks as if it's lost because it seems to be a bit overgrown, but it does say public footpath, and it is on the definitive map. So it's a bit of a cheat. That one's not really lost. So what are Lost Ways? What's it all about? Remember the joy of Right to Roam in 2000? We were all overjoyed that we could wander in open countryside, whatever. And that was all due to the Countryside and Rights of Way Act 2000, or what we generally call the Crow Act. It gave us quite a lot, but it also took some things away, or potentially will take things away in 2026. Now, at the moment, the definitive map, which I'm sure you all inspect on a regular basis, especially if you're an inspector, is conclusive evidence that the footpaths and bridleways and the like shown on it exist and are protected. But unfortunately, the reverse is not true. So there may be public rights of way, footpaths, bridleways, whatever, that are not shown on the definitive map, are public rights of way, but they're not on the map. And therefore, after 26, they will not be protected. The Crow Act will abolish unrecorded rights on the 1st of January 2026. Now, it's not quite that straightforward. Nothing is. But the important thing is, as the Ramblers are saying, don't lose your way. Now, there's one that's possibly been lost. So I'll go over it again because I think it's an important point. Lost ways and routes with public rights of way over them, and which were in existence before 1949, but don't worry too much about that. But they're currently not recorded as on the definitive maps. As it says there, some historic rights of way may have been in use within living memory may not have been used within living memory, sorry, because they're not evident on the ground or because they're obstructed. They may have been forgotten over the years. Now, they're difficult ones, right? However, some are in use now and may be clearly visible on the ground, but unfortunately, they're not recorded. So there's hundreds of rights of way across the Beacon Northern region, which we need to protect, basically. I've always liked this conundrum, or whatever it may be called. So Donald Rumsfeld famously said, there are known knowns, things we know that we know. And that's in our sort of context, is paths that are shown on the definitive map. That's all straightforward. We also know there are known unknowns. We know there are some things that we don't know. So perhaps they're paths that we would like on the map, but we've got to find the evidence to put them there. There's also the unknown unknowns. They're the most difficult ones to find, but they could still be there. So they're the long lost paths where the evidence is somewhat hidden, but people are looking for it, and it might be possible to find it. And then I would add, there's the unknown knowns. And this is really the area that inspectors and Beacon Northern members can really help. I would also like to add unknown knowns, the things that we think we know that turn out that we didn't. So these are paths that are in everyday use, and we use them without thinking about them. They're not obstructed. They're regularly used by lots of people, perhaps, but they're not recorded. Now, you might say that it's unlikely we'd lose those, but all we need is a stroppy landowner who discovers this. I mean, we know already the paths that are on the definitive map. you get a stroppy landowner who tries to block it. And we struggle quite a lot then to get it reinstated. So once they're extinguished after 2026, that task of trying to get the paths back could be very difficult. Right, so what are we looking for? And this is really what I'm hoping the general membership will start with. And I'm happy if they discover potential paths in Derbyshire, I'm happy to take those on. But I would say, and I'll probably say it again, that we've got a number of highway authorities, and no way can I deal with them all. So it will be up to inspectors or people living in a particular highway authority area to try and take on responsibility for paths in that area. So here we are. This is Dethick near Matlock, and this is the Derbyshire County Council online mapping portal. Path there, the purple dash lines are public rights of way. The pink solid lines are adopted highway, but we've got a path there that's just a dash line across the field. And it's obviously not recorded as anything. There, it goes all the way across those fields. We'll come back to that one later. I don't want to stick inclusively on Derbyshire, but a lot of what I'll say tonight will relate directly to Derbyshire, but will sort of pass over to other authorities as well. So I want to try and include a few others. This is the Kirklees online map. It's quite a nice one as well. I like Derbyshire's, but some local authorities don't really have much online. So if you're in one of those, you'll be struggling. Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire are not particularly good, but they're not in Peak Northern, so doesn't really matter. So this is Kirklees. This is near Marsden. Marsden, Stanage area. And they actually show definitive map modification order applications as a separate layer on their online mapping. So although as what have we done? There we are. That's the definitive map with the green lines and the bluey lines. But then if you look, you can see that somebody's put in applications for those two paths. I don't know whether, oh yes, there we are. It's a hand, I'm afraid, not a pointer. But that one there is actually well used. I don't know about the other one, but this is a recreational route. And you come off this footpath here, you come up here, walk along the road a little bit, and then pick up here. So if you look at the Ordnance Survey map, you'll see that that's already well used, but it's not recorded. So it's important that it does get recorded. Back in Derbyshire, this is Middleton by Wirksworth. This is one I spotted some time ago. Now the adopted highways are the pinky purple lines, and there's the end of an adopted highway. It's on a road called the Moor. There's a footpath, I can't remember the number of it, but that joins the unrecorded bit of the moor. And there's another footpath that joins an unrecorded bit of the moor. And potentially, if in 2026, if that's not recorded, those two footpaths could be lost, because if somebody decided to block the moor off, there may not be a link between the two paths. It's quite an interesting one, and we have already put in a definitive map modification order application for this route, because there's a track there. And believe it or not, that is that track looking from the north end. As you see, there's a stile, there's a bridle gate, there's even way marking, but it's unrecorded. There it is. Now, the other interesting point is, and I'll just bore you with this, the green line that I've just appeared As you can see, it goes over Hopton Wood Stone Quarry. And the reason for the red line is that when they wanted to extend the Hopton Wood Stone Quarry, the right of way, the public road, so they wanted to divert the green line so they could extend the quarry, and it was diverted along the red line. So there is a quarter session order that distinctly marks that out. It also includes that little blue bit because it was only the green bit. I know the colouring's a bit wrong way around, really. It was only the green bit that was, well, not all of the green bit even, but most of the green bit that was stopped up, really, to just from that point there to that point there. So all this should be recorded, possibly as a county road, really, but we're not too worried about that. This is another one I really like. This is close to home for me. It's Ripley 121 and 151. You can see there's a gap in the middle of them across the field there. There's also a gap down the bottom, gap A, because although it doesn't show up on this scale, the road here is public highway. Whoops. But the little bit of gap A isn't public highway. Now, the reason 121, these weren't claimed on the Ripley Parish claim, but they've both been diverted. 121 and 151 have been diverted. And therefore, when they were diverted, they were added to the definitive map. But the bit in the middle has never been diverted. So that's not there. It's weird, that one is. Right. Oh, back to Kirklees. Well, sort of Kirklees. This is a path in Kirklees here. And as you see, there's a bit of a gap there. There it is. Now there's the Kirklees definitive map, and it's Holmfirth footpath 150. I don't quite understand the numbers over there. The late David Hull drew this to my attention, as he drew a number to my attention, and I actually went to have a look at it. But again, I don't want to get involved. The reason it stops is because the red line is the boundary between Kirklees and Barnsley. So it's actually unrecorded in Barnsley. So people in Barnsley, hands up, please. That's yours to sort out. Kirklees have been very helpful. They've put a finger post up. It may just be in Kirklees, I'm not sure. I would have thought perhaps the other side of the wall was Kirklees. So it may be in Barnsley. It's just there. Now, to my mind, when I went to the site, I would have thought the continuation of the route would really be there, but they're suggesting you can access it from there. But again, it's just a matter of trying to get it all sorted out. I like to Derbyshire. Well, I do know it well. This is Killarmarsh, Eckington. We're almost up in Sheffield because, as you see, the top bit there, look, that's Sheffield. The black line is the boundary between Sheffield and Derbyshire. We've got a Killarmarsh footpath 9 finishes there. We've got Killarmarsh footpath 7 finishes there, 6 there, and 5 there. All dead ends in theory, but they all say that they end at a path between Bowley Lane, which is in Killarmarsh, and Pipworth Lane, which is in Eckington. There's a footbridge here, goes across the River Rother. And some years ago, I devised a walk that took me around the whole of the county of Derbyshire, following the boundary, and I actually used that footbridge on that walk. and never thought anything about it until somebody pointed out to me that there was all these dead-end footpaths. Now put in an application to try and get that route back. The interesting thing is that the Derbyshire are suggesting that that's going to be a cycle route, because this is the Trans-Pennine along the old railway line. I think it's a Trans-Pennine cycle route. So they're hoping to put a link in there. And it's a well-used footpath, that bit of it. This bit's a bit lost, but the rest of it really is pretty well used. But you know, we could end up losing it if we're not careful. This one to me. It's an area I don't know at all. Duckington Parish and Cordon Parish. This path does stop on the parish boundary, as you can see. The black dots are the parish boundary. There's that track that comes down, which looks as if perhaps it ought to be highway, but it somebody else. So you know, it just needs somebody to take a look at it. Right, where are we? Oh, this one's for you, Jane. Lamstead Lane at Denby. This was the very first application we put in. It's an old map. This is actually adopted highway, and at the time they showed footpaths with the same colouring. They've now changed it, but this is an old screenshot that I took. And as you can see, there's quite a few footpaths around here that all join up. But then we've got the lane coming down and it doesn't join up. Now this was a bit more serious because the landowner wasn't very cooperative, and he kept the gates closed and barred and told everyone that it's not a public right of way. I have used it since, and when the gates open or when I open the gate, Derbyshire County Council have now investigated it and decided that it's worthy of making an order, but they haven't yet made the order. But if you do attempt to use it, and you meet the landowner, he'll still tell you that there's no public right of way through there. So it needs sorting out. What we need to do now is where to look for evidence. And this again is sort of generalish, but perhaps some of the issues are specific to Derbyshire, but I'll try and make that clear as we go along. So I found a lot of the time now, perhaps the best place to start, if it's a dead-end footpath, is to look at the definitive statement, and it's quite likely that you'll have to get that from the Highway Authority. We have got the old ones in Derbyshire at the Records Office, so they're available to us, and they're usually what they're working on at the moment, but you'll have to discover where they are yourself. There's one for Derbyshire. This is the original definitive statement for Belper Rural District. This is one for Rhoda. Parish of Shotton Poston, footpath 86. It's on the definitive statement, but it's not on the definitive map. And there we are. Look, there's the FID. Footpath Inspector's database. Mine went blank. And as you see, it goes from 85 to 87. There's no 86. And there it is. It's on the statement. Right, and there it is on the parish claim. It doesn't really seem worth claiming when there's so many others, but there we are. I mean, it's just an example. If they made a mistake there, well, there's been other examples since then. And that's the parish claim schedule, which again describes the claimed footpath 86. So there's plenty of evidence for it, but whether it's worth the effort is another matter. Right. Well, the draft map, all these parish claims were put on a draft map. And to the best of my knowledge, we don't have a copy of that for Derbyshire. Some authorities may well have it, which will be useful to look at. So I can't really give you an example there, but it's just something to bear in mind. And then there's the modifications from the draft map to the definitive map. Now, Leicestershire is particularly good. They've got all the tribunals and all sorts of stuff at the Highway Authority. So it's worth asking. But again, Derbyshire tell us they don't have any of the tribunal records. Some say they're fibbing, but I wouldn't like to say. So we're back to Dethick. And those two paths that are marked on current day maps, why are they not? Well, there we are. This is the modification map. This is all we've found a few of these in the Records Office. And as you can see, footpath 3 was proposed or applied to be removed from the draft map. Footpath 4 was also proposed to be removed from the draft map. But as you can see, footpath 3, oh no, sorry, wrong way around. Footpath 4 managed to stay on the map, but tribunal obviously agreed with the objector, and footpath 3 was removed. So although it's still there on modern maps, and it's quite likely that the way some people have tried to identify lost paths, the evidence there conclusively shows that it was properly dealt with. So there's very little chance really of getting that one back, unless people have used it since. But again, I've had a look at that one, and I can see no evidence that people can or have used it. So I don't think there's much chance in that one. The others, another source of information. I seem to have lost me. Oh yes. Sorry, my thread. We also know, although we haven't got the tribunals or any county council evidence, that when they were going to consider the revisions to the draft map, they were advertised in the London Gazette, and that's available online. Here you can see the Derbyshire one for the district of Belper, rural district of Belper, and it actually lists. Stop it. And there we are. That's path number 4. That's number 3 and number 4. London Gazette paths to be deleted from the draft map, and so that's another source of information. London Gazette, and that's available online for anyone to look at. Diversion orders. Sometimes they relate to other paths as well, so that they're worth looking at. And I'll quickly say, well, we're on that. I was looking at one on the Cork estate recently, and when I looked on the Beacon Northern online files, I found reference to a diversion which included the path I was trying to claim. So it provided me with some additional evidence. So it's worth looking at those online. I've not included it in the list here, but those Beacon Northern online documents that have been scanned and now very usefully online. Right, we're getting to heavy stuff now. Quarter session records at the Records Office. I can't see the last one. 1773 to 1973. So there's a lot of them, but they are very useful. Here's an early one in Matlock, Bath, and they were trying to make this area here into a parky area that we're going to charge people to go into. It's now Gulliver's Kingdom, for those who know Matlock Bath, and we're diverting this path here. We've made a couple of applications here. It wasn't connected at the bottom there, but also this Upper Wood Road, it referred to where it goes. We've made use of it for that as well. So very, very useful. And there's the written bit. I'm not so good at words myself, but that's all part of the quarter session diversion. The justices went out and had a look at the path and decided for themselves whether it was fit for purpose. Right, getting really heavy now. Enclosure awards. Well, this is where you're really looking for those unknown unknowns. So enclosure awards, the Records Office most likely. Some authorities do seem to have them online, so it's worth checking. There's an enclosure award for Bonsall Parish. This footway here, this foot road, as they often called them, that one is recorded on the definitive map, but that one there wasn't. And this road here was awarded as a private carriageway. But it said that the foot-road went out the end of the private carriage road, so we have claimed that. But it was also very interesting that it came out of the private carriage road, which some have argued are not public rights of way. And we've come across a few now private carriage roads which have public footpaths linking to them, which seems to me to strengthen the argument that there are public footpath rights at the very least along private carriage roads. But that's an argument for another day, I would guess. Oh dear, I hate this sort of writing, but it was worth pursuing it and persisting, but it was a challenge. Tithe maps and awards are usually a little easier, and again they're in the Records Office. And the Matlock Tithe award is absolutely brilliant because it was actually printed way back when it was produced. And the other brilliant thing about it is something I'll come on to in a tick. So this is Ryber. We'd got a footpath came up here from Matlock, and it got to about there, then stopped, and we got a little bit in the middle. It was unadopted. But if you look there, I think I can't remember what number it is, you'll see in a moment, but the road has got a number. And there we are. That's the printout. Wonderful, this one is. So readable. 2981. The landowner, Parish of Matlock, occupier, in hand. 2981 was roads. So anything on the Tithe Award that had got the number 2981 was a road. It's thrown up one or two interesting bits and pieces. Not quite as much as I was rather hoping, but we've got a few out of it. And then the Finance Act, 1910 Finance Act. It was a bit like the 20th century doomsday when I think they did record all the land, and the idea was that they were going to be taxed on it when they sold it, I believe, but that's not important to us. The local Records Office will often have the working copies, and Kew have got the originals. That's what it looks like. And this one's for Ashover, just north, well, between Matlock and Chesterfield. Now, there's two issues here. All the taxable land had a number, And there's a book then that tells you who owned it and how much land it was and this, that and the other. So anything that wasn't within a taxable hereditament is considered to be land belonging to a rateable authority, and a highway authority was a rateable authority. So we take it to mean that they are roads, and generally they do match up with roads. So anything that's white, as we say, outside one of the taxable lots, it offers some evidence that it's a road, most likely a road, because if you had a footpath going across your land, you could claim a deduction to the value of it. So that's in this book as well. Now, the interesting thing is here, we've got a footpath here that runs inside the hedge along Salters Lane. It's there. There's a little gate there like we have in Derbyshire, and there's a stile there, but it's unrecorded. It's not on the definitive map. Now, it passes through this hereditament 217, and unfortunately, it was a small plot of land, and the landowner did claim a deduction for a right of way passing through it. He couldn't claim the deduction for Salters Lane, because that's not within his plot. So it must have been for the footpath that goes through that's unrecorded. So we've banged in an application for that one as well. There's the book with all the details. They're quite big books. It's difficult to photograph them. There's, I think it was plot 217, wasn't it? And then you follow it through. Stop it. And we got a deduction of £3 there for the right of way that went through there. Railway depositor plans. Now, I'd not really seen much of these until I started on this. This is a one we looked at Castle Gresley down near Swaddlingcote, Burton-on-Trent, Derbyshire. The pink is the pink solid line at the top is the adopted highway, which stops at that present day used railway line along Mount Road. But as you see, Castle Gresley Bridleway 3 doesn't meet it. It just meets Castle Gresley Footpath 5. So we got a bit of a gap in the middle. Right, so we've got north actually upside down here, and you see plot 25 is the road, and there we are, plot 25, public highway, the surveyor of highways. So that's offering us some evidence. Right, other evidence, Ordnance Survey maps online, National Library of Scotland. This is incredibly helpful to identify things. 25 inch to the mile. They've got most of the country, I think. So that's well worth looking at. Ordnance Survey usually put a disclaimer on to say it wasn't a public right of way, but it is useful to know physically that the path was there. Another interesting one is the forgot what it's called now. It's called Trove, but it's actually in Australia, and they've got very good copies of the first edition or the old series of Ordnance Survey 1 inch to 1 mile maps. They're absolutely brilliant. So they're good as well. Early county maps. This is one for Derbyshire. There was a chap called Sanderson who was at Mansfield. He had a lot to do with enclosure maps as well. So he probably used what he'd got paid for doing that, and then drew up a map that he sold to the public. This is one that we've claimed near Chesterfield. And he described it as a crossroad. And there we are, crossroad, the rather faint routes, and that's one. So there's also parish and estate maps, This is one from the Cork estate. It was drawn up when they were proposing the Ticknell tramway, which is now a cycle route through the Cork estate. There's the proposed route. I find it fascinating that it's drawn up by Benjamin Outram, who is involved with the Butley Iron Works as well as doing a lot of canal surveying. And he clearly marks a route that we were trying to claim, this one here. So not conclusive, but useful. Highway Board Parish minutes from the Records Office. I haven't got any examples of those. Ordnance Survey survey records, National Archives Kew. I mean, if anybody's got easy access to that, they apparently are very good evidence, but we've not really made use of Records Kew. Sale documents, which may well be in your county records office, and then the 1929 highway handover records, which may be in the Highway Authority records or records office. They can be very useful for these white roads. They're not footpath records really, but here's one. Near Staveley, Chesterfield, Derbyshire. As you can see, the pink is adopted highway. The green dash is Staveley Bridleway 43, and it just stops. But then when you look at the highway handover map, black lines are the handed over records. It stops here because that's the borough boundary, but it clearly shows that triangle was handed over as highway. Interesting that the bridleway was also handed over as highway. And there's the there's the code that goes with the map. Right, ease of access. Where are we? Local authority records, existing Dmmo applications. Well, it's important to look once you've discovered something, whether somebody's already found it and it's already been claimed. So you need to look at the register with your own local authority. The other thing to look at is the British Horse Society Project 2026, Dobbin they call it. So that's useful, but obviously they're concentrating on bridleways, and you may be aware that they're applying for a lot of footpath upgrades to bridleways. The evidence is there, so you can't really dispute it. And here's the Derbyshire County Council online register. This is an application of ours to add a footpath between Potters Lane and Pit Lane in the parish of South Wingfield. This is our only actual success so far. We've had quite a few that Derbyshire have said they're going to make an order, but there's only this one that they have made an order, and it's this route here. And we applied for a restricted byway, and there it is now, shown as Matlock Restricted Byway 110.
We're recording this a few days after Ken's talk so that we can explore a few further issues, particularly about researching the documents and making the application. So Ken, thanks so much for being available again, and thanks for your talk. The first question is, you talked about a lot of different documents. How do you find out which documents are actually available for any given path that you're interested in?
Well, regarding the Records Office, I find the staff pretty helpful. I did make a personal visit initially, and they pointed me in the right direction. But now I use their online catalogue. It can be a bit fiddly knowing what words to put in, but eventually you get the hang of where things are and reference numbers and the like to find particular documents. So, but if all else fails, just ask the staff at the Records Office. The other source of information, of course, is the Highway Authority itself. So it's worth trying to find out what they might have available. It's possible they've lodged it at the Records Office, but it's possible they've still got it themselves. And whether they've digitized it or not is another question to ask of both the Records Office and the Highway Authority, because they might then be willing to let you have a digitized copy rather than having to copy it yourself.
Yeah, I had an example of that when Terry and I were investigating one in Cheshire East, and we had to go to Crewe to the office there, and it turns out they had all the records relating to the 1950s drawing up of the definitive map, but they didn't want to send those to the Record Office. They wanted to keep them themselves, which is all well and good, but it meant we had to go and actually consult them. Okay, well, what about the BHS site? Are there documents on there as well?
Well, the Derbyshire part of it has got the 1910 Finance Act map on, which BHS and Pecan Northern paid to have photographed. And the Staffordshire, I believe, has also got the Finance Act maps. So I don't know what else, what other authorities of the BHS in other areas put online, because I've only been dealing with Derbyshire, but basically that's all we've got here. But there may be other stuff for other authorities, so it's certainly worth looking at the evidence library, I think they call it, on the Dobbins side.
And I think on the Ramblers site, you can put alongside the Library of Scotland maps with a modern map, can't you? And sort of put them together.
Well, I'm afraid I don't know. It's quite possible. You can do that on the National Library of Scotland site anyway. Right. So that's maybe where they've got it from. But I've discovered this split screen thing on the computer that I can look at two things at one time, which is useful as well. But the National Library of Scotland site also has a fade thing to Google. Unfortunately, it's Google rather than an OS map background, but that can be useful as well.
So that enables you to see for a path what was there, let's say 100 years ago on the map.
Yeah. And what's there now, whether it's been built over and whether it's worth attempting to claim it or not.
Yeah. And also on the Dobbin BHS site, I believe there's a way that you can accumulate the evidence so that you can see how much evidence you've got for a particular path. Do you use that facility?
I don't use it, no. I put some of the routes that I've claimed on the Dobbin site, again, only really for Derbyshire. But I'm aware that you can build it up like that. But really, because we've been claiming them by Pecan Northern Footpath Society rather than through the British Horse Society, who perhaps are more interested in bridleways rather than footpaths.
Yeah,
I've really wanted to claim them in our own right.
Yeah. So let's say you tick off, Ordnance Survey map 1870, you tick off tithe map, you tick off finance map. At what point do you think, oh yeah, I think I've got enough here to make an application?
Well, I've relied on the Books and Wadey book, which gives star ratings for different forms of evidence. I can't remember the numbers now. I just sort of have a feeling for it. But obviously, the enclosure map is going to be superstars. I think they give 10 stars for that. Tithe maps possibly 5 stars. But it does depend on the tithe. As I said, the Matlock tithe actually awarded or allocated the roads and that to the parish surveyor. So that was more positive than some other tithe maps. And a lot of the enclosure maps, they don't enclose the whole parish. So it may show a footpath or a road, but it may not be part of the actual award. It may not have been awarded at that time. It may have been free awarded or whatever the term might be. So again, it's not quite as conclusive as if it was in the written award. So you've got to be a bit careful with all of them. The more the merrier, basically. The more you, the fact that it shows on an ordnance survey map, I'm afraid it is very much down the star rating, because of course Ordnance Survey did put a rider on their maps to say evidence of a path on the map is not evidence that there's a right over it. Yeah. But it is good evidence that there was physically a path on the ground, which I always make that point.
Right, so the basic rule is get as much as you can, check which forms of evidence are the ones most valued, and that's where the Bucks and Wadey book is particularly useful. And then when you think you've got as much as you're going to get, then put in the application.
Yes, and I would say if it's a path that's going to be of great value, then bang it in anyway, because it can only be rejected. But if you don't put it in at all, then it's not even going to be considered. So I've got a few of those sitting in the bottom drawer at the moment. So when the time gets very close, I'm hoping that Peak and Northern will support submission, even though the evidence isn't quite as good as we'd like it to be.
Right. So what's the actual process of making an application, of submitting a Dmmo?
Well, the important thing is you've got to follow the rules. I would guess most local authorities will have a pre-prepared form that you fill in. If they haven't, then you're going to have to follow what's set out in the legislation. You could possibly use a form from a different highway authority, because they should all be compliant with the legislation. I don't really want to go into the detail of that. I think the important thing at the moment is to try and find routes that need claiming. I know we haven't got a lot of time left, and people have got to move on to the next stage. But at least let's try and determine that there is a project that needs doing. And if you're fortunate enough to be in your area and there aren't many paths that need claiming, then good for you. But there's certainly been plenty in Derbyshire.
And perhaps the final point we want to make is that the application will go in under the name of the society, with the society's address, because we all know that it could be several years before some of these decisions are finally made one way or the other. And of course, we may not be available when that gets, as Terry has said on more than one occasion, the one thing you need to do if you're involved in this kind of research is to live a very long time, because some applications can take a decade before they're finally resolved.
Well, Derbyshire are now looking at some that are over 20 years old. So yes, that's another reason why we want some younger members in Peak and Northern Footpath Society to keep up the good work in the future. I'm a little bit disheartened that I probably won't see the outcome for some of these applications, but at least I've done my bit. So
yeah, well, you certainly have, Ken. You've done a lot of work. And for those of you out there watching this and you want to get involved, then do get in touch with us through the society, through the website or the contact forms, and we can support you, and we can put you in touch with other people in your area. So I hope this talk has inspired you to get out there, look at those maps, start identifying the routes, and then we can take it from there. So Ken, thanks so much again, and goodbye everybody.